Welcome back to the daily Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. We are in section 65 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and we have begun to learn the laws of interest. Let's pull up the PowerPoint so we can follow along. Welcome everybody that's just joined. We started learning about the severity. Punishments are pretty strong and the importance are pretty big. It's very, very important to be careful about interest. And if a person did by mistake take interest, the Jew took interest from another Jew, it must be refunded. And then we get into more details. So ribis would also be if you took a loan and the deadline for your loan arrived, and you ask the lender if you can pay him a little bit of money to extend the loan. That's also ribis. It's also interest, because ultimately you're now paying to have his money by you. And then gifts we spoke about as well. Even if the borrower voluntarily makes an additional payment when he pays up the loan, this too is interest and is not allowed. Even if he tells him that this is not for the loan, this is just a gift. Again, it doesn't matter what he says. If the reason he's giving the additional amount is because of the loan, it is forbidden for the lender to take that gift from the borrower. Okay. So we're up to halacha number 6. So you're not allowed to either prepay ribis or delay it. So for example, if I wanted to borrow money from Shimon, and so in advance of asking Shimon for the loan, I sent him a gift. Yes, I wanted to develop the relationship. I sent him a gift, and then I'm going to now make an ask him if he can lend me money. So if that's what I've done it in order to obtain the loan, or even if I didn't say why, but it was a substantial gift, it's as if I gave the money for the purpose of the loan, which would be considered ribis mukdemis, which means giving ribis in advance, pre-loan interest. Or another scenario, if I borrowed money from Shimon, I paid him back, and then I sent him a gift in consideration of the fact that he allowed me to use the money. Again, this is also interest. It's just delayed interest. It is not allowed, which obviously could be quite tricky, because if you do need to take a loan and somebody gives you a loan for free, you will want to show your appreciation for what he's done. And the Torah says that you're not allowed to. So somehow when it comes to interest, we're very strict that it be done completely without any gain, any benefits in advance or subsequent to the loan. The lender should not have any benefit by the fact that his money was in the borrower's hands. What about a loan in return? Okay, so if I lend money to my friend for a certain amount of time, and then I thought that, so let's say today I'm going to this, let's say I was now going on a business venture. So I asked my friend if he could lend me 1,000 rand. And there was the understanding that when he goes, he's going to borrow from me 1,000 rand. We'll each borrow from each other. So as long as a result of him lending me money, I will lend him a larger amount of money, or the same amount of money for an extended period of time, that would be clear ribis, absolute ribis, because it means that since you lent me money, I am giving you something more. If I'm going to lend
What's happening if you take a loan, you give a guarantee bigger than the value and you can't pay back the loan?
Take a loan, give a guarantee greater than the value, and then you can't pay back the loan. So then, yeah, then the lender will need to refund you for however much more the guarantor is than the loan.
That if you can sell it.
That's a good question. I mean, he would need to take it because he needs to get paid back. Question is, if he can't sell it and he could only use it, does he now owe the difference? Possibly not. I'm not sure.
It's like paying interest, no?
Yeah, I hear you, but if he has no alternative, if I lend somebody money and they said while I lend the money, I should hold on to their let's say I lent the guy 100 rand and he said, well, he has 100 rand, I should hold on to his pen as a collateral. And then the money is gone and I need to keep the pen. If I can't sell the pen and the pen's worth 110 rand, do I need to now pay 10 rand out of pocket? I mean, I already lost 100. I wasn't interested in a pen. I was interested in the 100. I just took the pen as collateral. Now you're going to say, not only do I have to suffice with the pen, but I need to pay the difference. It sounds quite difficult. I don't know what the halacha would be. It's a good question. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Okay. So, but if you give a loan in return to the same value as the original loan, then that's maybe allow that because you're not really getting something an added payment. You're just doing the same for the other person as the person did for you. It actually depends if you stipulate it or not. If I say that I'll lend you money on condition that when I need money, I could borrow it from you, then some say this is prohibited because again, it's the condition is saying that I'm not going to give you the money. I'll only give you the money if I'm going to get something in return, as opposed to if just later at a later point, I lent money to you. And now later I want to borrow money from you, but no stipulation was made, then that should be fine. Okay, this is now taking it to the next step. Okay, the lender needs to be careful not to have any form of benefit from the borrower without the borrower's permission, as long as his money is in the borrower's hands. Right? So sometimes people can be, can feel like somewhat of a master. That I've just let the guy 100 rand. So I'm right now, or I've just given him I'm financing his company. So now, I'm doing a huge favor by financing his company. So now, obviously, if I need anything, I'm sure I could make use of it. So the answer is you can't without his permission. Even if it's something that you would have benefited from previously without the loan. So even though you would have benefited from it regardless, the fact that right now you are the borrower, you are the lender, and you're now taking benefits is a form of interest. But if I do get permission, then it's allowed, provided it's something that I would have done regardless. So let's try to make this practical. If I lend a guy 1,000 rand, he goes, he buys himself a car or whatever it is, a house, and now I want to stay in his house, or I want to stay in that car. So, or use that car. So I might think, okay, I could use that house because I financed it. Or I could use that car because I financed it. So the answer is you can't without his permission. If he gives you permission, you can, but provided that you would have asked him to do that even had you not financed it. If the only reason you're asking to borrow the car is because you helped him finance it, then you're not allowed to ask him to borrow it. You'll have to pay him rent for it. If you get permission, even then it shouldn't be public knowledge, because otherwise, again, it's going to look like you are taking a form of interest. Is this making sense, or have I lost you? Good. Let's continue. Number 9. Okay. If it was not the usual practice of the borrower to initiate greetings to the lender on other occasions, he may not initiate them now. Okay. So sure, we even taking it to verbal. If I borrowed money from Yankel and I've never said hi to Yankel, but now that Yankel lent me the money, I want to give him a big shalom aleichem, that's a form of interest. Since I wasn't greeting him until now, and now I'm greeting him because of the loan that he's given me, that's a problem. The borrower may not honor him with any sort of honor in shul or any other place if it was not his usual practice to do so on another occasion. So to other types of rivers of words are prohibited. Because it says interest of anything which is interest. The sages interpret this to include that even verbal ribis is prohibited, ribis meaning interest. The lender is also commanded regarding ribis to borrow. For instance, if he says to the borrower, can you just let me know when this and this product arrives? He's just asking him for a verbal assistance. Can you just let me know such and such? Even though he's just going to tell them 3 words, he's going to say, the delivery is at the gate, or whatever it is. If I wouldn't have, if me as the lender, if I'm the lender, I would not have asked the borrower to give me that piece of information, to send me that message, had I not lent him money, then this is also ribis, it's interest, even though it's just a few words. Because now the borrower is obligated to me. He now needs to, since he feels that since he borrowed money from me, he needs to advise me on whatever I asked him to advise me. Now you might ask, the Torah says that the borrower is considered a servant to the lender, which seems to say the opposite of everything we've said. It sounds like the lender can make use of the borrower. Let's see the term in Hebrew. Eved loiva leish malva. So he says no. This then says that the that the borrower is a servant to the lender only means that if there's a dispute between the two, then the borrower needs to go to the court, the Beis Din, that the lender desires. The borrower can't take the lender to a court of the borrower's choice. In this regard, he is subjugated to the lender. But nothing more than that. Okay. Even advantages that are not monetary may not be derived by the lender from the borrower. For instance, if the lender is a craftsman and it is not usual for this borrower to give him work at other times, but now in return for the loan, he wants to give him work, this is also not allowed. So if I'm going to say, I usually go to make my copies by Postnet, but now since whatever it's called, Sprint's thing has just given me a loan, I'll give him business instead. If the reason I'm giving him the business is because he has lent me money, that is also prohibited. Okay, before we move on to the next section, which speaks about, it's quite complicated.
Can I ask a question? What if you've never done copies before? So you're going now for the first time to make photocopies. Should you then avoid the person who's lent you the money?
No.
Even if it's the most convenient?
No, not at all. The problem is only if the reason you're going to him is because he lent you the money.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But if you would go there regardless, then you don't need to avoid it at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does that make sense? So now the next section of the Shulchan Aruch speaks about a phenomena where interest becomes inevitable, even though neither of the parties are intending on it. And that's when trading merchandise, since the value of items are continuously changing. Let's see the preface that they put in the English, and then we'll move into the text. So we said that ribis, d'oraisa, biblical interest, applies where the lender and borrower, at the time of the loan, agree to a set amount of interest to be repaid. However, if the rate of interest is not set, or if at the time of the loan it is uncertain whether interest will actually be paid, then this is ribis d'rabbanan, it's rabbinic interest. Okay, so if I say that I'm going to lend you money on condition you pay me back more, that's biblical interest. But if I lend you money and then you later decide to pay me back more, that is interest, but it's only a violation by rabbinic law. Since it's only a rabbinic prohibition, we could be more lenient. So the following paragraph discusses one aspect of Ribis D'Rabbanan. Unlike money, whose value halachically remains constant, yes, another rand, it's not constantly going up and down, but if you're within South Africa, a rand is a rand. The value of goods and services fluctuates. This creates a problem when lending goods and services, because at the time of payment, albeit the same quantity is returned, the value of the said goods may have increased, thereby giving a lender a profit on his loan. Okay, so what this means practically is if I lend somebody, if I tell somebody I'm giving you a kilo of avocados, I'm giving you a box of avocados on condition that you return, you compensate me. Right now the guy's short on eggs. I'll say, okay, I'll give you a dozen eggs, just please make sure to get it back to me by the end of the month. Now, if when I gave him the eggs, when I lent him the eggs, the carton of eggs was worth 50 rands. And since then the price goes up, and when he returns the eggs, they're now worth 70 rand. So the result is that there's a form of interest because I gave him 50 rands worth and he's giving me back 70 rands worth. It's not biblical ribis because it wasn't stipulated in advance, but it seemingly is rabbinic interest because the end result is that the borrower is giving back in value more than he took. So this is referred to as sa'a b'sa'a. Sa'a is a measurement for a measurement, a bushel for a bushel.
Let's make it more difficult.
Yeah.
You lended money from a Jew with no interest. You're not allowed to take interest. You're not allowed to give interest. But that Jew that lent you the money went into difficulties himself, and the goy buys his business. Now the Jew owes the money to the goy, and the goy wants interest. Are you allowed to give him interest?
Good question. Maybe we'll get to it. Can we hold on to it?
I've also got a question. So so you're saying if you have a product that in a year's time would be worth more, you're not allowed to do that if it's worth more?
Well, we're going to see how it works exactly. We first just explaining what this phenomena is. We say that there's a challenge when borrowing a product and then replacing it. There's a concern that there may be interest because you're giving back possibly more value than what you took.
Okay, can you do less? There are some people that were very thirsty during lockdown and having a very big collection of whiskey. I allowed people to have whiskey. I didn't go sell it. A bottle of whiskey that cost 380 rand for 700,000 rand. Some people were selling it. I said, when you can buy again, you'll replace what you've given me. For the person buying it, I mean, can you do it the opposite way?
Yeah, if it's the opposite way, there's no problem because it means that if you agree to that, it means that you're agreeing to get back less than what you gave. That's just a gift.
No, I'm giving back the same thing. A bottle of whiskey left and a bottle of whiskey came back. Just the price at that time was worth more.
So I'm saying our concern over here isn't of the price dropping because then it means that the product is the same, but the value has only decreased. So that means that as a lender, you're not benefiting, you're losing out. Our concern is the other way around. If the product increases the value, and then we say that the lender is getting back more than he gave. Okay. Okay, now there's an exception to this prohibition. If the borrower of the goods has the identical goods in his possession at the time of the loan, which he could, in theory, give back now, then the rabbi is allowed it. Meaning, if I borrowed a bottle of whiskey and I had a bottle of whiskey in my possession, but I just didn't get around to giving it to him now, I said, can I just give it back to you later? Then that would be allowed. We'll get into the details of this particular type of interest, which is quite fascinating. Unintended interest, but concerns of interest nonetheless. Please go